Hi there, this is Josh. Thanks for stopping by. Hey, remember when tools were made in the United States and they came in really nice cases, nice wooden boxes, like these countersinks that were made by the Fuller Company in Warwick, Rhode Island? They came in this nice, I don't think it was handcrafted, but it was a decent quality wooden case. Well, I just bought some new calipers not too long ago, and this really bugs me. They weren't super expensive, but they were expensive enough that I would expect to get something a little better than this cheap chintzy plastic case. And I would expect them to come with a case that wasn't broken when I bought it. I didn't realize, I usually inspect my tools and whatever it is that I'm buying. I usually inspect it very, very well. And I pulled this out of the cardboard sleeve and found this junk here. And that's just disappointing. It's very disappointing. Well, they come with the styrofoam cutout for the calipers and what have you. So I figured it'd be worthwhile to go ahead and make us a nice wooden box for it. So I'm going to take you along for the ride. It's a simple little project, but it's I think it's worth doing, and it's going to be something that's going to house these calipers and keep them safe, and maybe give them the appearance that they came in a nice made in the USA box. So stay tuned for the ride. Thanks. So I'm just going to be using some scrap materials that I have around the shop. I'm really not going to spend any money on this. The only money I did spend was $1.98 on these brass hinges here, and I think another $1.50 on this brass clasp that we can use to close the little box when we're done. And I have some brad nails kicking around the shop that are 89 cents. And I'm going to use this piece of trim board, which is just a scrap. I don't think it actually measures the original dimensions. Let's measure it. It looks like it was a 1x6, but it was ripped down. I must have done something with this at some point in the past, and it measures right now 5 1/4 wide by 3/4 of an inch by just over 3 feet, almost 3'2". Now what we need to do is come up with a box that's going to look something like this. It's going to comprise a top portion and a bottom portion, each of which will measure a width of just about 3 1/4, just over 3 1/4 by just over 9 1/2, 9 3/4 actually. It looks all the way over the bevel, and the depth is 1 1/16. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to rip this piece of 3/4 inch we'll call it 1x6. I'm going to rip this right down the middle, and I've already done this with another piece of scrap just to see how it would work out, and it worked out just fine. I ripped it right down the middle, and the way that I did that was I raised my table saw blade all the way to the top, and I ripped it this way, and then I flipped it right back over, and I ripped it again, split them right in half, and then I ran these two pieces through a thickness planer on both sides, and it left me with two pieces that are almost exactly 1/4 of an inch thick, which is perfect because we don't want our walls to be much thicker than that. There's really no need for it. It's just a little bulky and what have you. So my feeling is this is going to be perfect, and I'm going to go ahead and use this slightly nicer piece of pine and rip this down to use as our box material. We're going to rip this board vertically right down the middle. We want to end up with two pieces that are 1/4 inch thick on each side. Now, when doing this, we need to pay attention to the thickness of our saw blade. The thickness of the saw blade is called the kerf. On my particular table saw with this blade that's on here, the kerf is 1/16 of an inch. I always like to account for a little bit more because we're going to be running this through the table saw twice. Once on the initial pass, which is only going to go up around 2/3 of the way up this board. So then we're going to flip the board over like this, and we're going to take off that last bit of meat here. When this happens, in my experience, you're always going to get a little tiny bit of play. And so we need to account for a little more than the 1/16 inch kerf. It might actually end up being around 3/32 of an inch, maybe even up to 1/8 of an inch. Even if it's 1/8 of an inch, we still have plenty of meat on this board to run it through the thickness planer to give us the finished product that we're looking for. That's all we get out of that. Well, this cut came out very, very nice. There's very, very little slippage in the board against the fence as it was going through. So you can really barely even see a difference. It looks like this is going to come out really nicely. Let's run it through the thickness planer to make sure that both boards are exactly the same thickness. Beautiful. Alright, so the inside dimensions of the box need to be 9 5/8 long, and they need to be 3 1/4 wide. So now that we have our raw material all planed down, we need to rip it down lengthwise and cross cut at the right length. Come up with the height of each of the box halves, and we need to rip down the material so that it can be glued and nailed onto here. So each half of this box needs to be 9/16 thick, and we need to account for the 1/4 inch thickness of the bottom and the top, so we need to make this 13/16 of an inch. Alright, we got all our materials cut, and this is what the top and the bottom half of the box is going to look like. Now what we need to do is just glue it up and tack it all together with some brad nails, and put the hinges on. We should be all set. So working with material this thin, we always have to be worried about splitting the material with the nail. Now there are a couple of ways of handling this. We could pre-drill, but I'd rather show you a little trick that I learned from an old man when I was just a little kid. He lived right down the street from us, and he kind of took my dad under his wing. He was in his 90s, in the early 80s, I would say, and he was an unbelievable woodworker and carpenter. His name was Harry, and I'll always remember this little trick, even though it's something that I learned when I was a little kid. You take a little nail, this is a little brad, you probably can't even see it in the focus of the camera, and in this case we'll just put the head down and we deaden the head of the nail. Just like that. And this will pretty much guarantee that we will not split the material. Unfortunately, I just hit that a little too hard. Bend it straight again. So we'll deaden the heads of a few of these. And then we'll do a glue up, and we'll put a couple of brads in there to hold it in place. So we got both the top and the bottom pieces of the box put together, but I'm not happy with it at all, and I'll tell you why. It's just too clunky and too chunky. There's no reason the box needs to be this thick when the original was literally almost half as thick. So I think what we're going to do, discard the top, or one of them, and we cut a piece of pine to fit the top. So the box will look just like this. What do you think of that? I think that's probably quite a bit better. Alright, so that's what it looks like with a liner in there. One of the problems that we had was there was a little piece of styrofoam, a little piece of foam that went underneath the outline, which the calipers would sit on. But the problem was the top of the calipers would prevent this top from shutting, so it would look a little bit like that. So it's simple enough to just remove that bed of foam, and the calipers fit in just fine. And I think the last thing we really need to do at this point is to put the hinges on the cover and the little latch on the top, on the front. Hey, do you want to go play with some tools?
Tools?
Tools? Yeah. Do you want to use a hammer? How neat. Oh, what? What are you looking at, bud? Do you want to use some nails?
Yeah.
How about hammers?
Yeah.
How about drills?
Yeah.
You want to use a drill?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's so many tools in the shop. You like using the tools?
Let's show Dada how we ride the four-wheeler. Oh, hold on to the... Oh, we gotta turn. I'll go see what Dada has.
We made a new box for my calipers. The box costs more than the calipers.
Look what Daddy made. Look.
What do you think?
Look. Daddy has a part-time job working as an elf.
Wise guy. No, in all seriousness, the box came out pretty good. Pretty simple little project. I like the new cover design. That was actually Rob's idea, and it was a very good idea actually, because it was so clunky with this other top. My goodness, can you imagine how thick this thing would have been? Duh. Instead, we have this really nice little streamlined cover. It folds right down over. And actually, it's almost the identical thickness to the original box. So that worked out really well. And now we can keep my Chinese calipers safe in our American-made wooden box. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up, and as always, love to have you as a subscriber if you're not already. Hit the subscribe button. Love to hear your feedback in the comments. Thanks a lot, and see you on the next video. Thanks.